All right, hello everyone. My name is Julia. Thank you for coming to Vinyasa Yoga today. Before we get started, I'm going to read you all the William & Mary Campus Rec waiver. In order to make these classes as freely accessible to our participants, we will be using a verbal warning and assumption of risk at the beginning of the class. Participation in this online class is voluntary. Physical activity programs may result in injury, and by participating, you assume the risk of injury that may result from your participation. We strongly recommend that you participate from a space that is suitable for this activity. For example, make sure that you have moved nearby furniture and other potential hazards. If you are participating in a yoga class or a class that involves laying on the ground, we recommend using a mat, or if you don't have one, a carpeted area. Participants are encouraged to stop if they experience pain or injury and should seek appropriate medical advice or care as needed. William & Mary Health and Wellness strongly recommends that each participant have an annual physical examination and follow the advice of your healthcare provider before participating. All right, so today, let's actually get started on our backs on the mat. With your knees bent, feet mat width apart, knees resting together in the center. Arms down by your sides. Let's allow the gaze to soften or the eyelids to close and empty out all the air out of your lungs, starting on empty. And then taking a deep, slow inhale through the nose, filling up the lungs as much as you can, and then open the mouth, cleansing exhale. Again, deep, slow inhale through the nose, and cleansing exhale. One more deep, slow inhale. Cleansing exhale. Coming back to your normal breath cycle. Hugging your knees in towards the chest. Curling yourself up into a tight little ball. And keep the right knee hugging in towards the chest and lay the left leg long on the mat, flexing both feet and hugging the right knee in deeper towards the chest with each exhale. Extend your right arm long by your side and drag your right knee across the body for a twist over towards the left, keeping your shoulders planted on the mat. Slowly coming back to center, hug the right knee in towards the chest and extend the left leg long on the mat, flexing both feet, hugging the left knee in deeper towards the chest with each exhale. Extend your left arm by your side and draw your left knee across the body for a twist. Bring your knee back to center. Hug both knees in towards the chest. And roll onto your right side. Pressing yourself up into a seated position. And then making your way into tabletop. With your shoulders stacked over your wrists, your hips stacked over your knees, your feet directly behind your knees. elongating the spine, and dipping the back, bringing the gaze forward for cow. Rounding the spine, tucking the chin for cat. Inhale, cow. Exhale, cat. Moving through cat and cow a few times at your own pace. Meeting your neutral tabletop. Extend your left arm out in front of you as if you were to shake someone's hand and press back through your right heel, creating one line from your fingertips through your back heel, engaging the core to help keep your balance, and rounding the spine, bringing your elbow to your knee and hold. Extend, elbow to knee. Extend, elbow to knee. Extend. Lower your hand, lower your knee. Extend your right arm out in front and press back through your left heel, engaging your core, rounding the spine, bringing elbow to knee. And extend. Elbow to knee. Extend. Elbow to knee. Extend. Lower your hand, lower your knee, flip your left palm over, touching each fingertip to the thumb for a wrist release. Ball up your fist and straighten the elbow a little bit. Shake it out. Flip your right palm over, touch each fingertip to your thumb. Ball up your fist, straighten the elbow a little bit, and shake it out. Pressing both hands into the mat, really pressing through the finger beds, tuck the toes and send the hips up and back to downward facing dog. Paddling out through the feet. Chest coming towards the thighs, releasing the head and shoulders. Coming up on the toes, bending the knees, and straightening the legs as you bring your heels closer to the mat. And finding stillness. Bring the gaze to the top of the mat, slowly stepping forward to forward fold at the top of the mat, bending your knees generously, releasing the head and shoulders. And grounding through the feet as you slowly rise with a flat back to upward salute, arms overhead. Drawing your hands through heart center to Tadasana, mountain pose. Building our Tadasana from the ground up, really grounding through the three corners of the feet below the big toe mound, the little toe mound, and the heel. Drawing up through the kneecaps, externally rotating the shoulders, sending energy through the fingertips, stacking shoulders over hips, over ankles, and reaching your arms up overhead. Soft bend in the knees, hinging forward from the hip creases with a flat back all the way to forward fold, Uttanasana. Halfway lift, tracing the fingertips up the shins with a flat back, reaching through the crown of the head, Ardha Uttanasana. And release back down to fold. Grounding through the feet, once again rising to upward salute. Hands through heart center to Tadasana and coming right back up. Soft bend in the knees, forward fold. Halfway lift. Back to fold. Plant your hands on the mat, step back with the left foot and then the right into plank. Lower your knees to the mat, untuck your toes, keep your elbows hugging in by your sides as you lower all the way down onto the mat, resting your forehead on the mat. Really pressing the tops of the feet into the mat, legs engaged, kneecaps lift, Hovering your fingertips above the mat, inhale, peel the chest off the mat for Baby Cobra, Bhujangasana, keeping the gaze lowered. And exhale back down, great job. Press your hands into the mat, tuck the toes, and send the hips back through tabletop to downward dog. Lift the left leg to three-legged dog. Bend the knee, draw it towards the chest, and plant the left foot. Lower the back knee, untuck the back toes, so we're in low lunge. Left hip drawing back, right hip drawing forward so that our hip points are facing the top of the mat. Beginning to straighten the front leg, coming into runner's lunge. Opening up the hamstring. Flowing between low lunge and runner's lunge. And meeting back in low lunge, bringing one hand and then the other up onto the thigh, arms overhead. Reaching the right arm forward, left arm back. Back arm reaching down, front arm reaching up for this twisted reverse stretch. And coming back to center, bring your hands to your hips and turn the hips to face the side of the room. Swiveling your back leg around to the side and extending your front leg, keeping a micro bend in the knee. Extend your arms out to either side or reach back behind you and lower the fingertips to the mat. Reaching your upper arm over your ear for this nice side stretch, keeping space between the shoulders and the ears. And rounding through, walking the hands back around to the front, back leg swiveling back around to center, bending into the front knee. Framing the foot with the hands, opening up towards the left for a twist, keeping your knee stacked over your ankle. And counter the twist, opening up towards the right. Plant both hands on the mat, tuck the back toes, lift the knee, send the left leg back to three-legged dog, and lower the toes to the mat. Lifting the right leg to three-legged dog, bend the knee, draw it towards the chest, and plant the foot. Lower the back knee, untuck the back toes, so we're in low lunge with our front knee stacked over the ankle. Right hip crease drawing back, left hip drawing forward. And straightening the front leg, coming into runner's lunge. Flowing at your own pace between low lunge and runner's lunge. Meeting back in low lunge, reaching your arms up towards the ceiling. Right or left arm coming forward, right arm coming back. Reaching your front arm up towards the ceiling for this twisted side stretch. Coming back to center, hands on your hips, turning your hips to face the side of the room, back leg swiveling around to the side, extending your front leg, keeping a micro bend in the knee, arms out to a T, reach back, lower the fingertips to the mat, opening up the chest towards the ceiling, upper arm reaching overhead, side stretch. Rounding through and walking the hands back around to center, bending into the front leg, and opening up towards the right for a twist. Counter the twist. Plant both hands on the mat, tuck the back toes, lift the knee, send the right leg back to three-legged dog, lower your toes to the mat, bring your knees to the mat, untuck your toes, send your hips back to your heels, resting your forehead on the mat in child's pose. Reaching your arms out in front of you, lift the hips, tuck the toes, send the hips back to downward dog. Bring the gaze to the top of the mat, slowly stepping forward to fold. Ground through the feet, rise to upward salute. Hands through heart center to Tadasana. Pause for a breath cycle. And reach your arms up towards the ceiling. Forward fold. Halfway lift. Back to fold. Plant your hands on the mat, step back to plank. Knees can be on or off the mat as you lower all the way down. Minimal weight in the hands as you peel the chest off the mat for cobra. And lower back down. Tuck the toes and send the hips back to downward dog. Lift the left leg to three-legged dog. Bend the knee, draw it in towards the chest, plant the foot, and start to walk the back foot in, coming into standing splits. So shifting the weight into the front leg and lifting the back toes off the mat. Notice your hips are going to want to start to stack, but we're going to keep them square to the mat. Really drawing the inner thighs together towards the midline, pressing into the back foot, into the invisible wall behind you. And start to lower the toes, coming up to Crescent Lunge. Front knee stacked over ankle, hips facing forward. We're up on the ball of the back foot. Arms up towards the ceiling, gaze forward. Drawing the shoulder blades down the back. Finding that nice adduction, inner thighs drawing in towards one another. Great job. Planting your hands on the mat. Open up towards the left for a twist. Countering the twist. Plant both hands on the mat, step back to downward dog, and lift the left leg. Bend the knee, draw it in towards the chest, plant the left foot, stepping in with the back foot, preparing for standing splits, lifting the back toes off the mat. Again, keeping the hips even with one another, squared to the mat, drawing the inner thighs together. And lowering the back toes to the mat, preparing to rise to Crescent Lunge. Planting your hands on the mat, open up to the right for a twist. Counter the twist. Plant both hands on the mat, step back to downward dog. Bring the gaze to the top of the mat and either step or float to the top. Rising to upward salute. Drawing your hands through to heart center and sitting back into chair pose. Keeping the chest nice and lifted. You should still be able to see the tips of your toes. Option to reach your arms up overhead. Maybe sinking a little bit deeper before folding forward. Halfway lift. Back to fold. Plant your hands on the mat, step back to plank. Stacking your shoulders over your wrists, engaging the core, reaching through the crown of the head, pressing back for your heels. Option to lower all the way down to the mat for Cobra, or you can join me in coming forward on the toes. Lower halfway to Chaturanga Dandasana, and pulling through to upward facing dog. With your hips and your knees up off the mat, gaze forward, and we'll all meet in downward dog. Lifting the back toes to three-legged dog with your left foot. Bend the left knee, draw it in towards the chest, plant the foot. Again, walking the back toes in, preparing for standing splits. Lifting the back toes, flexing that back foot, doing a micro bend in the standing leg. Maybe reaching for your ankle this time, maybe just with one hand, maybe with both. Bringing your fingertips back to the mat, lowering the toes, and coming up when you're ready to high lunge. Planting your hands on the mat, open up towards the left. Counter the twist. Plant both hands on the mat, step back to downward dog. Lifting the right leg, bend the knee, draw it in towards the chest, plant the foot. Walking the back toes in, lifting the back toes to standing splits. Once again, maybe you stay here with your hands on the mat. Maybe you bring one hand to your ankle, maybe both. Bringing both hands back down to the mat if they're not already. Lowering your toes to the mat. And slowly rising to upward, crescent lunge. Great job. Plant your hands on the mat, open up towards the right. Counter the twist. Plant both hands on the mat, step back to downward dog. Bring the gaze to the top of the mat, bend the knees, step or float. Rising to upward salute, drawing your hands through to heart center and sitting back into chair. Forward fold, halfway lift, and back to fold. Plant your hands on the mat, step back to plank, and take a vinyasa flow of your choice. That can be cobra, upward dog, cat and cow. And we'll meet in downward dog. Lifting the left leg to three-legged dog, this time bending the knee and opening up the hips, stacking one on top of the other. Keeping the weight evenly distributed between your arms. Close the hips, extend your leg, come forward to three-legged plank, and bring your knee to your left elbow and hold. Extend. Knee to right elbow, hold. You got this. Extend. Knee to nose, and plant the foot. Coming up to crescent lunge. This time reaching your right arm forward, left arm back. Reaching your front arm up for this twisted side stretch. Coming back to center and opening up to warrior two. Opening up your hips to the side of the mat, planting both feet so your front heel is aligned with the back arch. Shoulders stacked over hips, arms out to a T, gaze over the front fingertips. Flip the front palm, reverse your warrior. And coming back to warrior two. Pivot onto the ball of the back foot to crescent lunge. Lower your hands to the mat, step back to downward dog. Lifting the right leg to three-legged dog, bend the knee, open up the hips. Square the hips, extend your leg, come forward to three-legged plank. Bring your knee to your right elbow and hold. Extend, knee to left elbow. Extend, knee to nose. And plant that foot, coming up to Crescent Lunge. With your left arm coming forward, right arm coming back, reaching your front fingertips up towards the ceiling. And coming back through center, opening up to Warrior Two. Flip the front palm, reverse your warrior. Back to Warrior Two. Pivot onto the ball of the back foot. Plant your hands on the mat, step back to plank. And to downward dog. Lower your knees to the mat, untuck your toes, send your hips back to your heels, resting your forehead on the mat in child's pose with your arms down by your side. Reaching your arms out in front, lift the hips, tuck the toes, send the hips back to downward dog. Bring the gaze to the top of the mat and step or float to the top. Rising to upward salute. Drawing your hands through heart center to Tadasana. Coming right back up. And folding forward. Halfway lift. Back to fold. Plant your hands on the mat, step back to plank. And take a flow of your choice, meeting in downward dog. Lift your back toes. Bend the knee, draw it in towards the chest, plant the foot, coming up to Crescent Lunge. With your left foot in front, if possible. Right arm coming forward, left arm coming back. Reaching your front fingertips up towards the ceiling. Coming back through center, opening up to Warrior Two, both feet planted on the mat. Reverse your warrior. Coming back through Warrior Two, reaching forward and lowering your elbow to your thigh. Reaching your upper arm overhead for extended side angle. Staying light on the elbow here, really opening up the chest towards the ceiling. Grounding through the outer edge of the back foot. Beautiful job. And coming back up to Warrior Two. Pivoting onto the ball of the back foot, planting your hands on the mat, step back to downward dog. Lift your right leg, bend your knee, draw it in towards the chest, planting the foot, and coming up to Crescent Lunge. Left arm coming forward, right arm coming back. Front fingertips up towards the ceiling. Coming back through center, opening up to Warrior Two. Flip the front palm, reverse warrior. Back through Warrior Two, reaching forward, lowering the elbow to your thigh, extended side angle, reaching your upper arm over your ear. Keeping space between the shoulders and the ears, opening up the chest. And rise to Warrior Two, Virabhadrasana 2. Pivot onto the ball of the back foot. Plant your hands on the mat, step back to downward dog. Lower your knees to the mat, untuck your toes, send your hips to your heels, resting your forehead on the mat in child's pose. When you're ready, reaching your arms out in front, planting your hands into the mat, lifting the hips, tuck the toes, downward dog. Step or float to the top of the mat and rise to upward salute. Drawing your hands through to heart center, sitting back into chair once again. Shifting the weight this time into the left foot and stepping back with the right straight into Crescent Lunge, reaching your arms up towards the ceiling. And bringing your hands to heart center, starting to shift the weight into the front foot as we move into Warrior 3. Lifting the back toes off the mat, really engaging the core, creating one line from the tip of your head through your back heel. Hands can be at heart center, back behind you, or out in front. Keeping a micro bend in the standing leg. Really stomping out through your back heel. Keeping your hips square to the mat. Great job. Bring your hands back to heart center. Slowly rise back to standing. Bend your knee in towards the chest, clasping your hands around the calf, flexing your foot. Leveling out the hips if your right hip is riding up. And reaching back with your right arm for a standing twist. Windmill the arms back to center. Lower your toes back to Tadasana. Pausing for a breath cycle. Amazing job. With your hands once again at heart center, sit back into chair. Shifting the weight into your right leg, stepping back with the left to Crescent Lunge. With your hands at heart center, shifting the weight forward and lifting the back toes off the mat as you come into Warrior 3. Really engaging the core, taking whichever arm position you prefer, grounding into the three corners of the standing foot, reaching through the crown of the head, pressing back through your heel. With your hands at heart center, grounding through the foot, slowly rising back to standing. Bend your knee in towards the chest, clasping your hands around the shin. And reaching back with your left arm for a standing twist. Windmill the arm back around to center. Slowly release to Tadasana. Awesome job. Reaching your arms up towards the ceiling. Forward fold. Halfway lift. Back to fold. Plant your hands on the mat. Step back with the left foot and the right to plank. Take a flow of your choice. Meeting in downward dog. Lowering your knees to the mat, untuck your toes, send your hips back to your heels, resting your forehead on the mat, arms down by your sides, in child's pose. Reaching your arms out in front of you, lifting the hips, And making your way into a seated position with your legs stretched out in front of you. And lowering all the way down onto the mat on your backs. Bending the knees. With your knees pointing up towards the ceiling. Extend your right leg up towards the ceiling. Flexing your foot. Externally rotate at the thigh and cross your right ankle over your left thigh. Interlacing your hands around the left thigh. Draw it in towards the chest, flexing both feet to protect the knee. And if you'd like, you can sort of nudge your right thigh away from the body with your elbow for an added sensation. In the supine pigeon figure 4 pose. Slowly release your left foot back down onto the mat. Uncross your legs, windshield wiper your legs from side to side. Come back to center with your knees pointing up towards the ceiling. This time extending your left leg up towards the ceiling. Externally rotate at the hip and cross your ankle over your right thigh. Interlacing your hands around the right thigh, drawing it in towards the chest, flexing your feet. Option to nudge your left thigh away from the body with your elbow. Slowly release, uncross your legs, windshield wiper your legs from side to side. Coming back to center, resting your knees against one another, walking your feet out to mat width apart, extending your arms out to either side, and lowering your knees over towards the left for a traction twist. Bringing the knees back to center, pausing for a moment, and lowering them over to the other side. Slowly coming back to center, hugging your knees in towards the chest, curling yourself up into a little ball, maybe rocking a little forward and backward, side to side. And reaching for the outer edges of your feet as you draw your knees in towards the armpits for happy baby. When you're ready, slowly release, extending both legs long on the mat, resting your arms down by your sides, allowing your feet to splay apart, doing a full body scan from the tip of your head through the tips of your toes, and releasing any remaining tension before allowing the gaze to soften, or maybe closing the eyes and settling into your Shavasana. Starting to bring awareness back into the body, wiggling the fingers and the toes, drawing circles with the wrists and the ankles. Reaching your arms overhead for a full body stretch. And using your arm as a pillow as you roll onto your right side. Using your hands to press yourself up into a seated position with your palms together at heart center. Namaste. All right, that's all for today. Thank you all so much for coming to Vinyasa Yoga today. I hope you have a great rest of your week. Thank you.